I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit last year, Dr. Muneeb Shah, like many of us, found that he had more spare time on his hands. The fourth-year dermatology resident physician here in Wilmington had social media pages on Instagram and on Facebook, but he saw people posting videos there and on other apps, and he wanted to try something more. So he downloaded the TikTok video app, and he posted his first video there about skincare May 1st of 2020. And then he posted another, and he posted another. And he was telling people things like what to do to take care of a rash or how to treat acne. He was recommending the good skincare creams and telling people what not to do to take care of their facial complexions. Soon, his Derm Doctor account on TikTok exploded. Now, less than a year and a half later, he has more than 10 million followers on that app, and his other social media pages on Instagram and on YouTube have hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers, and his videos have been seen more than 3 billion times. Dr. Muneeb Shah has become one of the most influential voices in the field of dermatology and on all of social media. Dr. Muneeb Shah, dermatology resident at Atlantic Dermatology and social media superstar, welcome to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
John Evans, thank you so much for having me. My boss, Dr. Crane, he says wonderful things about you. He says he's known you a long time, so I'm happy to do this interview.
Well, I am happy to do it as well with you because he speaks very highly of you, and so do apparently 9.9 million followers on TikTok. Can you explain to me, Dr. Shah, the social media explosion that's happened to you, Derm Doctor, in the last, say, 18 months?
Well, I'll say that it certainly was unexpected. This is not something I set out to do. I'm not going to be, I didn't go on social media thinking, I'm going to make content, people are going to love it, it's going to go viral, and I'm going to become this social media quote unquote superstar. It's never the plan. It basically happened by accident where I started to create educational content. And part of it was we had a little extra free time because of COVID. A lot of people weren't going out. And so on the nights and on the weekends, I'm staying in my house. I'm like, you know what? I have a camera. I have social media. People are making content. I can make content. And at the time, the biggest people in the skincare space and, even talking about skincare conditions and skin conditions, those people were not dermatologists. And so I was like, well, I have the education. Like, let me talk about what I know and see what people say about it. And then all of a sudden it took off. And I realized at that moment, people kept asking me questions, well, how do you treat acne? Well, how do you treat acne scars? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of questions that I know that I wish I knew when I was in their position. So let me just make a short video about it. And then it really just continued to take off from there. And I realized that I was needed in this space and there wasn't a lot of voices that were speaking on behalf of dermatology. And so I just continued to kind of go with the flow, I guess.
And were you active on social media prior to the pandemic? Instagram? I know you downloaded TikTok, my research says, April of 2020. But were you on Facebook? Were you on Instagram? Were you on Twitter before that?
I had a personal Facebook, just family, friends. And then on Instagram, I had a sort of dual personal professional account, but it was small. I had, I think, 500 friends and family and a couple of random followers that I hadn't posted any educational content at all. So It was really just photos of me on vacation, photos of me with my family, and that was it. And so my first sort of foray into the skincare dermatology space on social media was on TikTok, and I posted my first video May 1st of 2020.
Do you remember that very first video? Were there trepidations? Were you scared? Did you not know what to put in it? Take me back to that time where you posted that first video.
That time for me was very freeing because at that time I didn't think anyone would see the videos. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have any followers. So I was just making videos that I thought were funny because the way that the TikTok platform works is you make the videos inside the application. And so you can make like cool edits and, make things look funny and add music and like be creative essentially. And so for me, it was entertaining to make videos that I thought were funny that I could make and then send to my family members and my friends and say, hey, look at this funny video I made. And I thought it was clever, but I didn't think other people would ever see those videos. And so actually that was the most free time I had been on. So I had no trepidations. As a matter of fact, I was just making videos for fun at the time.
Now, compare September of 2021. How much time do you spend? I know we talked prior to rolling today that you do your shift at the office and then you come home and you do like a shift on social media. How much time do you spend on social media and in every video?
So videos, it depends on how complicated the video is because there's some editing now that kind of goes offline where, I put it in some software and it's gotten more professional than it used to be, the whole enterprise. But still, sometimes, it'll only take me 10 minutes to make a reaction video, or sometimes it'll take me an hour and a half to make a video. So it really depends. But from the time I come home till the time I go to bed, I pretty much am either studying or doing social media at this point. And I do it all day Saturday and Sunday too. So I really probably put at least 40 to 50 hours into social media a week in addition to my full-time day job.
So basically, I'm not going to see you at the municipal golf course playing a round of 18 on a Saturday or a Sunday. You're focused on your social media, right?
Yeah, and it's because I truly, the reason I made content initially was because I loved it. I thought it was fun to make. And I still love dermatology. So a lot of people will, they'll see me out in public and they'll ask me a skincare question and they're like, oh, you probably hate answering skincare questions. And I'm like, I actually love it still. Like, I love making content that people learn from. And so I still love answering questions. I still love coming home from work and talking more about dermatology. I love when my family friends ask me questions about dermatology. So it's really just something I can't get enough of right now. So I'll push off the golf until I can't do this anymore, I guess.
When did you realize that the ball was rolling downhill? That the 1 million followers came, and then April 2 million, and then May 5 million, and then I guess June it hit 6 million on TikTok. Was there a day when you went, uh-oh, this is starting to gain a little momentum here?
It was a weird time because we weren't leaving our homes really as much. I was going to work, I was going home. And so nothing in my life necessarily changed, but then a lot of people knew who I was, and had seen my videos. But I felt like my life personally had not changed at all. And so I was still making content in the same way, but and I've done this with everything in my life where like, I always want to do better than I was doing before. So this was true about me when I was in medical school. Like if I did a certain score on a test, like I wanted to do better on the next test. And when I started learning about dermatology, I wanted to learn more about the condition and things like that. And so with social media, it was the same thing. It was like just continually to challenge myself to make better content that would be more relatable to people, that would reach more audiences. And so I just kept like pushing myself through that time period. And then just one day you're like, wow, like 1 billion people have seen my videos. Like it's a weird feeling that there's so many eyes on you. And then you start to think like, I gotta be careful what I post,
Yeah.
A lot of people are gonna see it. And so, my content didn't really change, but it's evolved as the audience has grown. But I can't really describe the moment because it's just like, I feel like even now I still am just like, how can I make better content that reaches more people? Like it's still the same mentality.
Was there one post that showed you the power of social media that one may have, you may not have thought was going to take off, but did? Because every once in a while, I'll post something on Facebook that I think is going to get great engagement, and it flops. And then I say something, and the next thing you know, it's got 990 likes and 400 comments, and I'm like, I give up trying to figure this all out.
I'm as baffled as you are. I'll tell you to this day, everyone's like, you must know how to make content go viral. I am clueless about this. Before I hit post on a post, I just ask myself the simple question, does this add any value to anyone's life? And if it does, I post it. And sometimes they explode. And I'm like, I didn't expect this or want this one necessarily to go viral, because the ones I want to go viral are usually pretty dense in information. But that's just like, it's too much, and people want quick information, I realized. And so the ones that do take off are almost always unexpected. I've gotten a little bit better at saying like, I should watch out for this one because this one might go viral. But the first time I posted one that had gone viral, I was actually wearing these exact scrubs, and I had come home from clinic, and it was a long day. And I remember it was 8 p.m. or something like that. And I laid in bed, and I just had this idea. What if I say, if I start off the videos explaining a skin condition with saying, what's on your skin, right? And I have a picture of it behind me, what's showing on, a classic skin lesion. A lot of people have probably had it or experienced it.
Right.
Maybe it's poison ivy, maybe it's a skin tag. And I started a video out saying, what's on your skin, part 1. And I just started like describing like, this is a skin tag, and this is how it causes it, and this is how you get rid of it. And I posted 3 of those videos back to back, like not thinking, like almost as like a series, and not thinking that any of them, and they all went viral that night. And then once you start picking up the momentum, people start watching your previous videos, and then those videos start to pick up. And then there was a video I had posted about things the worst skincare trends or something like that. It was like part 1 of the worst skincare trends, part 1. And it was just like, jade rollers or putting ice on your face, just, things that I see people do that I don't think really have long-term benefits to the skin. And that went like mega viral, and like the newspapers picked it up. It was on like traditional news outlets, and it just really started to take off and take a mind of its own. And it kind of got virality out of sort of my control that was on my platform. It started to go out other places. And I realized like I just educated 15 million people on something that would take me a lifetime to teach this many people.
Right.
And so I realized from an educational standpoint, the power on this platform or on these platforms for dermatologists and people in these types of positions to counteract misinformation was more than you could do in your lifetime by speaking to people face to face. And so I was like, I have to really take this seriously at this point. And so from then on, I was like, I need to make content that makes a meaningful difference. And so that was really kind of how it all started.
Before we go on a little further, let's introduce Teddy Bear to everybody, because he's obviously he's obviously got something to say. And in the video version, this is Teddy Bear, the Yorkie poo of the family.
The Yorkie poo of the family. He has been with me since my 2nd year of medical school, and my best friend. And so he's around for all interviews, and he always makes sure that he makes an appearance.
He's welcome at the WECT, and the One-on-One with John Evans podcast. He can come in whenever he wants to.
That sounds good.
Talk to me a little bit about your coworkers now. I mean, because again, you've been at Atlantic Dermatology now here for a little while. We both have a Dr. Jonathan Crane in common. When did they start to notice the impact of these posts and videos and the educational benefit of the same?
Yeah, actually Dr. Crane, not only my, program director, but also like a life mentor to me in a lot of ways. And, he actually recognized, I think, the power maybe even earlier on than I had realized. Like he said one day he came home, he's like, I watched your videos, and he's like, this is something, you're onto something. He's like, you know how to do something, make things succinct for people, and make it easy for people to understand that a lot of people aren't able to do, and you're actually doing it. And you should hone that skill. Like he was actually very encouraging of it. And, we've had patients that have recognized me. We've gone out and people have recognized me. And so, people started to know who I was, but I think we saw that the videos were getting millions of views. And, I would make some educational videos on diseases that not a lot of people know that they have, and that actually are a big agenda of the American Academy of Dermatology to educate people on. A good example would be a condition called hidradenitis suppurativa, which is an inflammatory condition that causes like painful bumps in the armpits and the groin. And this is something that we really try to educate people on because they don't know they have it and they're embarrassed about it. And so they never go to the doctor and tell them that they have this condition. And so our goal in dermatology was like, how do we get these people in the office? And so I posted a video that got 5 million views, 5,000 comments, and all the top comments were people saying, I didn't know I had this. Now that I know I have it, like I'm so much less embarrassed and I want to seek out treatment. And so I'm like, we all collectively looked at this like, wow, like we can really do something if we really are serious about this. And so Yeah, like it really is. Like I take it very seriously what I do, even when people see me being goofy and joking and laughing. If I'm dancing or lip syncing a song, like I take it very seriously what content I put out there for people to consume.
We talked earlier, and there seems to me to be differences in what you post where. So when did you realize that the TikTok video is different than the YouTube is different than the Instagram is different than maybe the Facebook? Because there's a little difference in each one of them I've noticed in studying the videos you have posted.
Yeah, I started to realize the people on Insta, there are people that kind of traverse all the platforms. But I started to realize that a lot of the people that follow me on Instagram are not the same people that like TikTok and are certainly not the people that watch YouTube. A lot of people that watch YouTube, they go in searching for a question. You know, they say, I have acne. Let me find out the best products to treat acne. And they'll search that. And then they look at the product, the video they think is most trustworthy for that. Instagram, a lot of times you're just scrolling content that you like. So a lot of times you're going to see a lot of the things you already like. And then TikTok, you're seeing information that you don't even know if you like it or not. It's just showing up on your feed. And it's just like, how can you make the most appealing video to people that's going to have the most watchability? And so very different audiences. And so very different nuance that goes into that video. TikTok, you don't want a lot of information for people. You want simple, okay, how many, maybe I can give you 3 facts within this 15 to 20 seconds. Instagram, it's like we can go into a lot more detail, a lot more nuance, but not too much. We just want like enough that people can act on it. On YouTube, you really want to solve a problem for somebody. You really want to go into details and you want to like have them really benefit from learning from that video. So different audiences. And I actually cater very specifically to those audiences because I actually did a poll on my Instagram and I found that there is not a lot of crossover between the platforms. I initially thought everyone was following me from TikTok. I thought they must come from TikTok because I have almost 10 million followers there and I have less on the other platforms. But it turns out that only about 50% had any crossover between the two platforms. And so the other half were in each platform just by themselves there. And so I was like, I need to make content that's individually catered to those people because some people like to watch traditional TV. Some people like to watch podcasts. So I started to do Clubhouse. Some people like to read books. And so I was like, I need to try to reach all these audiences because they're all people that need the same information and they have the same questions.
Was there a time when you got a call from somebody for your expertise because of one of these videos?
Yeah, I feel like every day, even this, doing this podcast, I'm like, oh, it's always shocking to me, like, okay, like these new people, these new avenues want to talk to me. That I always kind of look at myself as like a TikToker because that's where I started. But then all of a sudden you're a YouTuber, and then all of a sudden you're on podcasts, and it's just like, you're doing so many different things, but you never really look at yourself as that person, and so. Every time I do something like this, like whether it's like being in Vogue or Cosmopolitan or, any of these things where I'm like, I'm quoted or they wrote an article about me here, it's like shocking. One of the craziest things was that in October, the Melanoma Research Foundation was like, we want to honor you at our 25th annual gala for your education on skin cancer.
Wow.
I'm like, for making TikTok videos, like, I'm like, how do I even comprehend like that, people are really, really are seeing the impact of this. And so, yeah, like every day I'm like grateful and humbled and shocked almost by how far this thing has come.
But when you look at, you said something earlier, Dr. Shah, that when you look at it, the educational component of people who may never go because they've got a spot in an embarrassing place, they may never go to the doctor, but you almost kind of gave them the okay that, no, Bill in Oregon, you're not the only person that has this. So when you come back to education, you are educating for the masses compared to, how long would it take 9.9 million people to walk through the doors at Atlantic Dermatology in a different kind of a comparison? So when you look at it that way, I'm not surprised. It's a great honor for what you've done.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. But it's still, to me, I'm still, the same,
the
same sort of guy.
enormity of it all, I can understand. Is there a difference between when you endorse or recommend a product versus one that you might criticize that you think doesn't work as well? Because again, just by watching your videos getting ready for this, I've noticed that there's a lot more of the encourage side than there is for the side where you say you might want to hold off on this. And with your power, I imagine you have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, I used to be sort of brutal with brands and products that I didn't like, and because I thought I was talking to myself only, and then all of a sudden now I have this global audience, and so I think to myself, like, when I hit this post button, what does it mean for that company and for all the people that use this particular product, and is it really as bad as I'm saying it is? And so I'm much more thoughtful about that, and even positive and negative, because if I say something positive, people will go out and buy that. They'll spend money. They'll put it on their skin. It needs to be good. It needs to be safe. And so it became very difficult for me at some point where I almost got to the point where it was like writer's block, because I just had so much information, and it was too much like responsibility to get that information out. And then I really, one day I just kind of woke up and I said, you know what, it's actually much simpler than this, to make a decision about what to recommend, because there's almost always incredible nuance. Even in today's climate with everything that's going on with medicine, there's always nuance where you can find a compelling argument for the other side, where you could say, this is good, but not really, and this is bad, but also not really, right? So there's always this sort of in between, right? And it's never as clear. But then I can never make videos, right? Because it would just be so nuanced, no one would watch them, right?
Right.
And so I finally woke up one day and I said, it's actually pretty simple. I have this education, I have this understanding of the skincare product. What would I do if my sister, my wife, my mom asked me about this product? What would my recommendation be? And then it became super simple for me, because I wouldn't recommend this to my family member. I would recommend this to my family member. And then it became easy after that. So there's nuance, but I'm using my professional judgment and what, from like an empathetic standpoint, I would do for my own family. And then that's how I make all my recommendations now on social media, good or bad.
That's funny to hear you say that, because my censor or my common sense is usually asking my wife if this would be good to post. And if she says, yeah, you're okay with that, then good. But if I have a second thought about whether it's going to be backlash central, she'll usually tell me, you might not want to do that.
It's the best you can do, right? Because you're never always going to be right. You're going to be wrong. And I actually I've posted stuff where it's gone viral in the wrong way. It's gone to the wrong group, and I've got a lot of negative comments. And I actually don't have an ego where I'm like this. I've seen people, like, something goes viral, they keep it even though they know it's causing some problems. I'll take it down. Like, I have no issue. If I think that it reached the audience in the wrong way, or the information was misleading in any way, like, I'm the first person to take it down, because my goal is overall to leave a positive impact. So I don't just want my videos to reach lots of people. I want to make sure that it's good information, it's accurate information that is overall leads to positivity. And so if it goes viral and it's not doing well in the right way, I'm like, just delete it. It's better overall for the good of people.
Do you consider your number one social media job being to dispel myths, to diagnose, to answer questions, or would it be like D, all of the above?
I think D, all of the above, and I think one of the reasons I make content the way that I do is one, dispelling myths, because that has almost become built in, because I get tagged in so many videos. Like, the way that TikTok works is that, like, people can, they hit @ and then they type in your name. And so when someone sees a video about skincare, something dermatology related, anything related to like surgeries, I always get tagged in these videos. And so people want to know, what do you think about this? Is it good? Please react to this. And so I'll get hundreds of tags. And so what ends up happening, if I see the same video popping up in my tags all day, I'm like, people really want to know what I think about this. And so I dispel myths based on what people tag me in from the videos. And so that's where I get a lot of my dispelling stuff from. Then I make, like, okay, now I want, I've done enough of that. Let me pivot and do a little bit more just straight up. I want to educate about this disease. Then I'll do a little bit of like, I want to educate about this product or this type of product, this skincare line, or, I kind of mix it up a little bit. And then I talk a little bit about surgeries and how to properly pop pimples and how to, just things like that. So I definitely mix it up. And then I add a little bit of personal content in there because I think it's super important for people to realize on social media that I'm just like you in every single way. Like, I have my dog and, I think the cat videos are funny, or, I like to watch people cooking, and like, we all like the same things. And so I want people to know that dermatologists are relatable. So the person that does have that skin condition that's embarrassing knows they're like going to see a friend that's very similar to them and has the same fears, goals, interests as they do. And so I do post personal content to give that sort of human side of my account.
What is the best part of social media in your mind? And then conversely, what is the worst part to somebody who's been on it and, let's face it, is very successful on social media?
This is a good question. What is the best part? I think the best part is when someone tells me, because there's always days where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore. Like, there's just days they just wear on you. And I'm sure you know what that's like. When
Yes,
you're
I
just
do.
like, you just keep getting hit like all week. And you're like, like, I mean, is it even worth it? And so, I've had this conversation a bunch of times, but then you just get the one comment or one person that says something like, because of your video, I decided to get this spot checked out. It ended up being an early skin cancer. And the only reason I went in was because of your video. And then I'm like, like I have like a responsibility to like keep doing this because I have all these people that trust me. And so that I think is the most important thing to me, is that like, I think that overall my content makes a positive impact. I think the worst part about it, honestly, is that people like know who I am. If that's like a weird thing to like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, I wish I could get the information out there without me being center of that information, if that makes sense.
I do. Yeah.
Because I just, I'm a kind of a private person in a lot of ways. And so it's like, I've always had trepidation with putting myself out there. And so I think probably the worst part is just like, people know who I am, and good or bad. Like, there are people that I've helped and I don't know. And there are people that don't like my content, or so it's really this like unknown of all these people, that I it's always tough for me to like cope with.
Can you tell me maybe the first time somebody recognized you in person, face to face, from one of your videos here in town?
First time,
I mean, because you're going to have patients maybe see you in the grocery store or in the pharmacy or something like that, but maybe it's the first time somebody said, I watched your video and thought it was great, whatever, that kind of interaction that surprised you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of videos I do where like I go into like CVS or TJ Maxx and I like go through the products and I say, this is the best and worst of TJ Maxx. And so I've walked in and people have been like, oh, you're about to do that. Like, I know you from there. But recently, there was probably a pretty memorable moment. I was at Indochine in Wilmington, and one of the waitresses had come up to me and she said, like, I changed my whole skincare routine for you and my skin's doing so much better. I just want to show you how much better my skin is doing because of the videos. And she was just so happy to tell me that. And like, I was like, wow, like, that's pretty crazy to think like, she recognized me and wanted to tell me how much better her skin was because of my videos. And so that's pretty cool. And the craziest thing to me, I think, is when you see what I think would be like the audience is not always like the audience. I remember like there was like probably a 15-year-old boy that came up to me at like the mall and was like, hey, can I take a photo with you? Like, I love your videos. And I'm like, this is not the demographic of skincare, but he liked it because of, just it reached him on TikTok and it resonated with him. And so it's not always the audiences that you think that you're resonating with. And so that I think is always fascinating to me, is that it's like all age groups, all genders that are really, embracing this type of content, because we all have skin,
Right, yeah, it's one thing everybody has in common. I must tell you, to have people come up and thank you for something you've done, one of the most special times for me. I've done, was the JDRF ambassador and did the JDRF for almost 20 years here in town because my father died from complications of diabetes. And so people who you help that way. And my wife is a breast cancer survivor. We lost my mom and both of her parents to cancer. So helping the Cancer Society and those kind of ways, and then having people come up and thank you for that. It makes it more special when it's somebody who is touched by what you do rather than somebody saying, hey, I watched you on TV the other day, you were great. Or hey, I saw your video, I liked the tie you had on. It's those personal connections that I feel are more special. I don't know if you agree.
100%. I mean, even in medicine, it's like those personal connections you would make with people are always the things that stick with you when you go to sleep at night and when you wake up. I mean, those are the things that really have impact and that you remember years later. You know, like you don't remember what you ate, you don't remember who you hung out with, but you remember those moments. And you know, I try to collect all of those because this life is, you know, this year has been so crazy for me, but there's still so many moments like that that stand out to me as like being truly special that I'll never forget, you know, because it makes me really feel like, okay, I did something good. And I feel like everyone wants that feeling, right? That they made a positive impact. So I completely understand what you're saying, and it really means a lot when people do that, especially when they are just like so happy to tell you that they feel like they need to tell you this, right. And it's really special to me.
Is there a lot of money to be made being an influencer, having a lot of followers on TikTok, having a lot of followers on Instagram? I don't know, and if you don't want to talk about this, I understand. But for those of us who don't know, is there a lot of money to be an influencer? Is there a lot to be an influencer on TikTok and Instagram and the such?
I think that's a fair question, and I also think it's something I was always curious about as well. I can tell you that I didn't realize people were making money until I had about 1 million followers on TikTok, and the first brand reached out to me like, I want you to talk about our product. And I was like, oh, this is how it works. This is how people become influencers, right? And so there's definitely money to be made. I think that it is a legitimate career for a lot of people. So you definitely, there are multiple revenue sources, and you know, there's kind of different baskets that you can pick from. So you get money if you're a YouTuber. YouTube pays you, right? So when you watch an ad, like before your video rolls that you really want to learn about how to change a tire, the person who created that video, they split the ad revenue with YouTube. And so, you know, whatever the advertiser paid, they split that, I think, like almost 50-50 with the person who made the video you're about to watch. And so there's that revenue source. So it's very passive, right? And then you also have the opportunity to, you know, talk about products and, you know, promote products. And so brands will pay you to do that. You can also just essentially sell products to people, right? So you can like create t-shirts and hats and stuff like that. So there are people that their sort of niche fits more with that. And so you can sell, you can make ad revenue, you can sort of work with brands. And so it's sort of a mixed bag, but I think it's a legitimate career if you sort of take it seriously. I think that if you are unethical in my space, you could make a lot of money. I can tell you that the biggest offers I ever got, I had to say no to, and because they just didn't match with my principles. And so I think trust is the most valuable asset that I have. And I think my followers are very smart. They know, because I always say this is about education, not influence. So my goal is, if I said something that wasn't true, you should know by now, because I am very consistent, and I try to educate you on ingredients and what's good and what's bad. And so if all of a sudden I start saying, I hate all these ingredients, but then I start promoting this product that has all those ingredients, I mean, people are pretty smart and they'll know. And so those offers, I say no to them. And so I think if I didn't have probably another job that, you know, was keeping the lights on, you could be unethical and make quite a bit of money on social media. But for me, it's definitely not going to replace my day job. You know, dermatologists do relatively well, but I think it can be a legitimate career for a lot of people. I think there's more money in social media than I thought before I had got on social media.
Well, you were going down that way, and I was going to say, you've taken a Hippocratic oath, and you're going on and saying that this product is good and this product is good, and if somebody takes it or somebody uses it and all of a sudden has a negative impact, that's going to come back somehow on social media, so it's going to impact you in a different way. I would think that the Hippocratic Oath and you being a doctor would be first and foremost, since you've spent the greater part of your life studying to get where you are now.
Right. And I think also, it goes back to that, like my principle is like, what would I say for my own family member? And so sure, like I can recommend something and you could be allergic to anything, right? Like, so, I can't guarantee that, it's going to work for you or that it's going to be, or that it's going to not cause you any harm. But what I can tell you is that I feel good at night because I know that these are products that I would recommend to my family. And so I sleep pretty well at night knowing that. And then, I'm very careful about who I make partnerships with as far as brands and stuff. And a lot of them are brands that I loved and knew way prior to social media. And even the fact that they reached out to me initially, I was shocked that they would even want to work with me. I'm like, this is my favorite brand, like they want to work with me. That's crazy. But it's because they saw I was already talking about them naturally. And so I think people are smart, influencer culture, I think, gets sort of a negative, a lot of negativity because people post a lot of stuff that's maybe not accurate or true. And I think it really hurts the images of a lot of influencers. But I think if you're honest with people, they know. I think if you're trustworthy, you build a relationship with people, and that's really all you have is the trust that you build with these people. And so for me, I take it very seriously, and for me that makes it so that I keep my day job. but certainly there's more money than I thought.
Okay, pull back that curtain. What was a young Muneeb Shah like? Did he always want to be a doctor? You're born in New York State, raised in New York State. What did a young Muneeb want to be when he grew up?
Young Muneeb had no idea what he wanted to be. Young Muneeb was a bad student and a difficult son. Let's put it that way. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I thought I knew everything, and I didn't really have a goal. So I graduated from high school. Initially, started to work in retail. Kind of worked a little bit all over. Different jobs from several gas stations to American Eagle and Abercrombie and McDonald's, and I bus tables. And then the last job that I had before going to school was I worked at Men's Warehouse. I worked in men's suiting for a few years. And so I did that. And then, one day I said, I want to go to school and I want to become a doctor. No doctors in my family. No one told me to become a doctor. I just decided to go to my local community college and enroll in classes. And I started taking these classes and I was like, this is actually fascinating to me, biology, like that, what's going on like underneath, like on a microscopic level manifests in these different diseases. And so I decided like, yeah, I'm going to stick with this. And so I transferred to a 4-year college, graduated, applied to med school, and then really actually taught myself how to study. I was not a good student. And so my first, couple tests, I was like a failing student, like almost near the end of high school. And then by the time I got to med school, I was like a straight A, top of my class student. Dermatology is very competitive to get into. And so I actually taught myself how to study and I fell in love with science. And so I was not necessarily a good student. So I always try to tell people that have kids that are difficult or have kids that don't know what they want to do or are kids that don't know what they want to do, that you don't have to figure it all out. Once you find what you love and you find your passion, it becomes so easy for you and everything just makes sense. And so just move forward is what I tell people. Just do something and something will eventually stick. And so for me, that's how it worked. I wasn't a good student, but once I found my passion, it became easy and I became very, very good at it. And so, I was not an easy kid, but, I think now, hopefully, my parents are finally, a little proud of me.
Well, I would hope so. Graduating magna cum laude, I think, from Hofstra, and then Nova Southeastern University, and then did internal medicine at Albany Medical Center in New York, and then you went to Penn State. Yay, Penn State. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so I got to drop something for the Nittany Lions there.
There we go.
Yeah. How did you meet your wife?
Med school. So I, first year med school, I'm going down. This is the story. So I went to med school in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm thinking, I'm a single guy. I'm 25. I'm going to Fort Lauderdale. I mean, first year med student. I mean, the world was my oyster.
Right. Yeah.
I'm at the pinnacle of my life, and so I thought like my life would, but then I saw her first day that I get down there, essentially first week that I'm down there. And I'm like, she's the one, like I gotta pursue her. She's my med school class. And so we started to study together, and what I thought my life would be like in Fort Lauderdale, Florida was very different. And so we hit it off really early on, studied together, got through med school together, took our classes together, took our tests together, matched together for our residency programs. And so basically we went through the whole process together. And so she's actually finished her OBGYN residency, and she's now actually doing a fellowship in female pelvic reconstruction right now.
Does she help you with the social videos? Did she buy in along the way? Is she the one on the other side of the camera most of the time?
Not at all. So she doesn't not like the social media. I think initially at first she had the same sort of trepidations that I always have, is like, all these people are seeing this, like, what does it mean to have all these eyes on you and for all these people to know who you are? So initially she was hesitant, I was hesitant, but the videos were taking off and we decided it was having a net positive impact. So I stuck with it. But she makes a cameos every now and then in my videos, but I pretty much shoot all my videos myself. YouTube, I have an editor that helps with sort of videography. But with TikTok, it's all just me point and shoot in front of my camera. So I do all that, and she makes a couple cameos that make it a little bit more fun.
Do you do all of the graphics as well, floating in the pictures and the images, or do you have somebody helping you with those?
For YouTube, we have an editor that does that.
And what about the TikTok videos?
TikTok, I do that all myself, like, putting the text that pops up and, the cuts and the music and all that. I do that all myself.
It's funny from my vantage point. Younger in my career, wherever I would go, whether it would be back home, whether it would be somewhere on vacation, I would watch the local news there and I would critique it, obviously. And then I would maybe steal an idea and maybe bring it back to the station I was working at. What about you? When you're out and about, do you look at people's skin? Do you say, ooh, I could help that person, or that person's got bad sunburn, or that person's got rosacea, or are you too deeper in thought, different places to be looking at people?
That's a good question. So, yeah, so what do I do? So when I definitely get a lot of ideas from interactions with my patients and seeing people in public or seeing other people's videos, like it definitely inspires me to make the content that I make. I have seen skin conditions on people and I'm like, is it my place to say anything? And I don't usually say anything. I have been in gas stations where people have said, hey, I had this spot. I remember this lady behind the counter asked me, I had this spot, and she like flipped her hair up and I was like, that's a skin cancer. Like, I can almost guarantee you that. And I'm like, I'm not your doctor or anything, but there's a dermatology office up the street and like, you should certainly get that checked out. So, I try not to make any like diagnoses on people in public, but skin is all around you and it's what people see every day. And I think that's why skin care and skin conditions and dermatology is so important to people. It's the first thing that you see about people. And it's directly related to people's self-esteem. It's directly related to, their mood. And so it's something that's very visual to people, and it's something that people, it can affect their life if their skin is not good. And if their skin gets better, it really has a positive impact on their life. And so because it's so visual, it's hard not to see things when you're out in public.
Do you mind if people come up and say hello? People ask me, does it bother you when people come up and ask you for an autograph or say hello? And I say no, because it means that they're continuing to watch and invite me into their homes every night. How about you?
I love it. It's never bothers me. When people come up to me, we're at the airport about to take off for our vacation. And, this young lady came up to me and said, I watch all your videos. And she was actually wearing like a skincare mask underneath her regular mask. And I was like, that's so cool. And she's like, yeah, like I watch all your videos and I learned so much from them. And I just need to come to you and I say hi. And we're about to take off. But I was like, the fact that you would go out of your way to watch my videos, support my content, trust me and have faith in me, especially in today's time where, it's tough,
Yeah.
To trust physicians, like to have earned that from somebody, like, and you going out of your way to come up and say that to me, like I can feel nothing but honored if people come up to me. And so that will never bother me. Is sometimes I've seen some like paparazzi really harass celebrities, and like I don't think I'll ever get to that point. But if it did, I could see that. But the people that come up to me, they really just genuinely want to like thank me, and I'm just grateful that they trust me and that they continue to trust my videos and continue to be educated. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years down the line?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think I'd be here last year, so it's like I'm just taking every sort of opportunity as it comes. I want to continue practicing dermatology. I want to continue educating. I don't know what that looks like in what capacity, because I don't know how long I can make front-facing content the way that I do. I'll do it as long as I can, but I think, growing my own practice, potentially helping build skincare brands with some of the education I have on ingredients. I see that as sort of a natural fit as like the next step, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Do you like Wilmington and being near the beach enough to stay here? Does your future mean southeastern North Carolina?
I like Dr. Crane enough to stay here. No, I do like the area a lot, but truthfully, my wife will call those shots. She's much more particular about where we live. So it's for me. I just kind of go wherever she wants to go when this is all over and when she's done with training. But I like it here a lot. Wilmington's been great to me. Weather's perfect. Couldn't be happier. I don't need anything else in my life, and so we'd be happy to stick around. But if we end up somewhere else, that's okay too.
I'm a journalist. Suggestions on how you think, as somebody who's really knows social media, how would somebody like me establish a TikTok account? I've got Twitter, I've got Facebook, but I'm not on TikTok yet. What's some expert advice to people looking to establish on that platform?
Talk about what you know first. I think that always comes from a place of, talk about what your experience has been, as a newscaster, as a journalist for so many years. People want that expertise, right? So talk about what you know. Make videos that are interesting and engage people's attention. And that's hard. Like, how do you do that, right? Like, how do you just pick that up? Well, watch videos first. Like, just watch for a day and see what captures your attention. And whatever captures your attention is probably going to capture other people's attention as well. And so if you can make videos that are compelling in the same way that you're consuming videos that are compelling, and with the message that you're trying to get across, right? Because you have a particular niche.
Right.
That's how I would go about it. And just put stuff out there. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that people have. Like I said, when I started making content, I didn't think anyone was watching it. So I didn't care like what it looked like, what it sounded like. I didn't care what the lighting sounded like. I didn't care what I looked like in the video. I just posted it, and it resonated with people. And so I think people want authentic content that's not rehearsed and not scripted. And so just talk about what you know, make it quick and make it catchy. And I think overall, if people even learn something or being entertained, they'll continue to watch.
Well, Dr. Muneeb Shah, dermatologist, Atlantic Dermatology here in Wilmington, but more importantly, educator, entertainer, and let's face it, social media monster. We appreciate you taking the time to join us on the One-on-One with John Evans podcast. Your story is fascinating to me, and I must say congratulations on everything you've accomplished at such a young age.
Well, thank you so much, John. I'm honored to be here, to have you on, to be on your podcast and, talk to your audience. But thank you so much for having me on. Been a humbling year for me, and I just hope people continue to, trust the content that I put out. And my sort of vow to all of you is that I'll continue to make content that is trustworthy, honest, and will stick by the principles that I've laid forth today. So thank you all so much.
A huge thank you to Dr. Muneeb Shah for sparing time from his very busy schedule and joining us for this week's podcast interview. Follow him on social media. He's very educational and he's entertaining at the same time. On TikTok, where he has those 10 million followers, he is at Derm Doctor. And on Instagram, he's at Doctorly, Doctorly. You can follow him there. And on YouTube, it's the same name, at Doctorly, and that's where you could subscribe to his videos on that channel. Before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please download and subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. I do want to know what you think of our interviews, and the more feedback we have from friends like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps and the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of One-on-One.